Welcome to part 5 of this F22 rebuild. We got two heads here. Got the old busted up head right there. Got the new head right here with the awesome brand new camshaft. Don't forget your woodruff key. Call it right there. What I need to do is install the camshaft seal. So how I do this, have this brand new seal right here. Have this plumbing fixture. It's actually called a reducing coupler. I'll put a link down in the description below where you can get it. But the cool thing about this is this seal fits perfectly right inside there, right? Okay, see that? That allows me to put this in one quick, easy, simple setup, one easy way. And once it gets started, I'll be able to just tap it in. Okay, so let me put you on a tripod, and I'll show you how you do that. Okay, got my reducing coupler right there. Like I said, I'll put a link down in the description below. You guys can pick one up. Got it from Home Depot, I believe. So, it started. The key thing to remember is when you put the seal in, you don't want it to go cockeyed. You don't want it like this or this. You want it to go straight and even. I'm going to put a little bit of grease on the inside lip here, and on the seal itself. Just help it slide in there a little bit better. When I do the water pump and the timing belt, I'll actually replace the seals down on the engine side because this vehicle has 300,000 miles on it, and it's better to replace them now than to wait. So make sure it's nice and lubricated. Okay, so just pushed it in with my hand, held the backside of the head and just pushed it in. Let me give you a closer look at that. So you can see right there, got it in place. You want it flush with this right here. Just going around checking it. Yep, it's flush. Okay, now put in the cam gear, the woodruff key. Remember, this is it's index, so you can only put the gear on one way. The bolt, you torque down to 18 foot-pounds. Okay, right there, that tiny little piece of metal is your woodruff key. Do not lose this, okay? Honda does sell them. They're about, I think, 15 bucks. But it only goes in one way. So the curved part goes towards the bottom. The flat part goes towards the top. So, got the gear here. Go ahead and put the woodruff key in. Like I said, it's indexed, only goes one way. Whoops. Forgot the cover here. 10 millimeter. Okay, got the gear on. Now I'll put the woodruff key in. You can see it's not perfectly lined up right there. So right there. Flat side goes up. Okay, there we go. Here's a bolt, 12 millimeter, 18 foot-pounds. Do not put Loctite on this. Got my torque wrench set to 18 foot-pounds. There you go. Good to go. So we are back up at the engine. Already prepped it, prepped the block, prepped the intake. Let me show what I mean. So on the intake back here, had this old nasty intake manifold gasket. Some of that was left over. I don't know if you can see anymore. I actually cleaned it all up, but let's see. No, I got it all. So over here in the corner, it was stuck on there. Around the edges, it was stuck. The way you want to get it off, just get yourself a razor blade. Got yourself a handy dandy razor blade. You're just going to go around, go like that. Scrape it off. Any residual. Like right there. So right there you got some, right? there you go. That's how you clean it up. You don't want to go at a real steep angle. You don't want to go like this. You want to go at a really shallow angle. Like, that's how the razor blade is. Okay, so go around, clean any of the old gasket off. I got off the intake here on this side, and then I went around the block, got that cleaned up. Another thing you want to do is, this is cylinder 1, 2, 3, 4. You need cylinder number 1 at top dead center on the compression stroke. You're going to want cylinder number 1 on the compression side because you want the intake and the exhaust closed. But the way you double check if it's on number 1 is you have markings on the crankshaft pulley and on the timing cover that match up and line up. So let me show you that real quick. What you're looking at is the crankshaft pulley, and then right here, right there, is the mark, or the gauge I should say, from the timing cover that shows you that you're actually lined up on number 1. So you can see the little tiny, let me get my laser. Let me show you exactly what I'm talking about. So right here, right there on the crankshaft, you see that little indentation, and you have this gauge, I want to call it, that sits on the timing belt cover. That gauge and this mark on the crankshaft pulley need to line up, and that way you know you're at TDC on cylinder number 1, top dead center on cylinder number 1. You have these little markings over here, these 3 markings that are grouped together on the crankshaft pulley. That's where you don't want to be lined up to. The mark you want to be lined up to is this tiny little mark all by itself with no friends. Don't worry about these, just worry about this one. I'm actually going to get a yellow paint pen and I'll mark it and I'll bring you back, but that's what you need to line up to know that you're at TDC on number 1. Number 1 is right there. 2, 3, 4. And your firing order is 1, 3, 4, 2. So you have 1, 3, 4, 2. 1, 3, 4, 2. That's your firing order. Firing order is 1, 3, 4, 2. I just wanted to bring you back in real quick and show you the mark that I made on the crankshaft pulley. That is where you need it to line up to be on TDC for number 1. So the yellow mark is where you need to be. Alright, we're going to head back down below on some of the 2.2 liters and some of the 2.3 liters. You had a oil cooler. It actually sat at the base of the oil filter. So it's actually on the back side of the engine. I'm going to show you guys how to do that. If you have a huge oil leak and you think it's coming from the back, there is an O-ring that sits back there behind the oil cooler. You need to take that out and replace the O-ring. I'm actually going to also replace the 2 hoses that are back there. Okay, so before I go underneath again, I just want to show you the parts that you're going to need. I got these from the Honda dealership. I got the homie hookup at Riverside Honda. If you guys need parts, go see Greg. Talk to Greg in the parts department. Tell him Bundy sent you. So the first hose you're going to need is 19521-PT2-000. Second hose you're going to need is 19522-PT2-000. And the O-ring you're going to need, that's the O-ring for the dipstick. And that part number is 91309-PJ7-010. That's for the dipstick. Where's my other O-ring? And the O-ring that you need for the oil cooler is 91316-PE7-730 for those of you who cannot read. So let's get under there and do it. See how big that O-ring is? That sits between the oil cooler and the engine block. Alright, what you're looking at right there is the oil cooler. This nut is what holds it on. It's a 30 millimeter. So you need a 30 millimeter socket or a wrench to be able to get this off. This is 30 millimeter, short, 1/2 inch. Let me go get my ratchet and I'll break this thing free. So these 2 hoses, you have one here, one there. Can you guys see those? That's what we're going to be taking off. It's best if you wear eye protection with all this muck and gunk and all this stuff down here. So got my 1/2 inch ratchet. And I think it broke free. That was pretty easy. Gonna get this socket to guide it out. You might have some oil when this comes off, so just be careful of that. Here we go. There's some oil dripping, not a whole lot. And then right back here, right there between the oil cooler and the engine block, is the O-ring we're replacing. You guys see it right there? See if we can get that out in one piece. Yep. And it's rock hard. There it is. Probably as old as this Honda is. So, awesome. Awesome, awesome. Put that off to the side for right now. We're going to replace this hose and this hose. Just get my pliers up here. I won't bore you with that. They are coolant lines, so best to do it now than later. Is there anything special on the back side? Yeah, you can see where the O-ring sits into right there. And I'm getting oil running down my hand, but it sits right there. So make sure you clean this surface up. I'll clean this surface up. I'll actually take it out of here and clean it up as well. Since I'll be doing the coolant lines, I'll just take it to the bench and clean it up. But there you go, guys. If you have a serious oil leak in the back of your F22, you're probably leaking oil from the oil cooler, and you need to replace that O-ring. Well, I wanted to film it underneath there, but it's just too tight. You guys would just see my hands moving around. So let me show you what the components are here real quick for the oil cooler. This is the main nut that goes through, goes all the way through. This is the O-ring that sits between the oil cooler and the engine block. It's rock hard. Definitely needs to be replaced. It's already cracked like that. And you have these two old hoses. So to get this one out, I cut it with my knife, and I just wanted to, before I actually removed it all the way, I want to mark the new one so I know which side actually sits like that. So the engine block, this would be the engine block side. This is the cooler side, obviously, and it sits like that. So I just want to mark the new one before I rip this all apart, or before I take this end off, I should say. And then this is just a 90-degree hose. So these hoses have 300,000 miles on them. Pretty impressive that they stayed intact. They are mushy, like noodles, so they definitely needed to be replaced. But pretty cool that it didn't tear open or cause an oil leak, or a coolant leak, I should say. So the O-ring sits inside there. I'm going to clean all this up. Get all this stuff off before I put it back on. But yeah, there you go. So cut this hose in half. Made it easier to get to this one. I'm actually going to reuse these clamps. I hate the worm drive ones. So there you go, guys. Like I said, if you have a major oil leak on the backside of your F22, this O-ring is probably shot. Alright, got the oil cooler all cleaned up. One thing I wanted to share with you guys, and it's very important that you do this and make sure when you're down there and you reinstall everything that you do this correctly, okay? So you see this little ring right here, this little divot, this indentation, or not indentation. Basically what this does is you put the hose over it, right? And then you have your clamp, and your clamp, imagine if the hose is on there, your clamp needs to sit behind this ridge, okay? Don't have it like this. Don't have it be cockeyed like that. You want it behind that ridge so that the hose is clamped behind this ring. Okay, so I've heard horror stories of guys that put in new radiators and they take the spring clamp like this. So it looks exactly like this, just on a bigger scale. And they put the hose clamp like that, caused a leak, and wiped out an engine because it lost all the coolant on the freeway. So just be careful when you reinstall the hose. Make sure you get the clamp behind this ring, okay? Like this, not like this, not like that, behind it. So stay tuned for part 6. We'll be putting this back in, and I'll put the head back on. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do the timing belt next. So, but stick around. Part 6 is coming up.